Welcome to the Community Collective Podcast, a flip-flop agent production in collaboration with the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. I am your host, Johnny B. Good. All right, welcome to another episode of the Community Collective Podcast. I am your host, Johnny B. Good, the flip-flop agent working with Remax Edge over here in Davison, Michigan. I am joined today with my extra special co-host, Mr. Travis Howell, formerly a Lansing insider, which will play into today's guest as well. But he is currently the executive director for the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. And man, oh man, we've got some fun things coming up. But in the interim, we have an amazing guest today, and I am excited to welcome that guest on. Travis, why don't you say your hellos and introduce us to who we're talking to, and let's kick it off, man.
Yeah, good to talk to you again, Johnny. And I always appreciate the friendly welcome. But you know what? I never considered myself a Lansing insider, just someone that was there working for some good people and met a lot of good friends. But I am excited. Today, we have one of my good friends, State Rep David Martin. David, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, Travis. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. How's your morning going so far?
Well, we do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
I believe it. As someone who used to help schedule for legislators, I know as a staff member, we always try to see how much we can fit in. It's always a fun challenge to see how many places we can get you guys to go and meet as many people as possible.
And this morning, it was mostly personal, being Monday and being in the district and not in Lansing. I got my sister dropped off to get her car repaired. I got my eyeglasses picked up, had breakfast with my wife, and now I'm with you.
See, right there, just crammed so much in already this morning. And then we appreciate your time. And so one of the things that we always like to talk to our guest about, and I'm always myself very fascinated to learn, is David, what is your background? What type of work have you done? What type of things have you been involved in the community? And what things do you enjoy being involved in?
We'll start back in ancient history. I was graduated from Davison in 79. Unemployment by 1980 had hit 30%. I joined the Air Force because it was pretty bleak around here at that time. Liked the Air Force, liked my job in the weather career field. So I stayed for 20 years. And when I retired, I came back to my hometown. After I got back here, I was security director at the Pontiac Silverdome, just leveraged my stuff we use for rules and checklists and stuff, just operational awareness. I just fit in with this security business and did several corporate security jobs until I fell into my elective career.
Oh, that is a wide variety of things. So now, when you're serving in the Air Force, were there certain places you were stationed, or where did you go in the Air Force?
I lifted my right hand, swore my oath, and joined the Air Force, and spent the next 20 years on Army posts. Did what we call combat weather teams. And the Army doesn't have weather forecasters. How they use their high-tech weapons for laser sighting, for artillery, Army aviation, a whole host of things we had to cover for their weather. And we're out there in the field with them and dragging our M16s in the mud right next to them. And then I did get a couple Air Force assignments up at Wordsmiths, Nascota, which was great. I fell into that luckily. And I was up at Alaska for a year. And that's over in Ramstein Air Base in Germany. It was about my only Air Force assignments.
Okay. Yeah. So now, when you said you finished after 20 years of service and then you went into security. So what type of things did you do? You mentioned you were at the Silverdome. I'm sure you got a chance to experience a lot of interesting events that were at the Silverdome when it was around.
Let's just say I always looked at it as I was a bouncer in an 80,000 seat bar. So anytime alcohol's in the mix, you don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, the crowds for Monster Jam, outstanding. Of course, I had to go through the 0-16 season of the Lions. That was not a fun year.
Oh, yes.
But there were just a lot of activities. I took LeBron James up the elevator because one of our elevators broke. I had to take the back elevator. And that was when he was just graduating from high school and before he went in the NBA. I took Coach Matt down there. We had the Super Bowl 40 practice for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Silverdome. And I took Coach Madden down the elevator. It's one of the very few times I broke my own rule and asked somebody for an autograph.
Oh,
And that was the week before he became in the Hall of Fame. So there were some good things, sure.
Yeah, just I think there's so many fun stories that you're there working and I'm sure very professional in everything you did, but if it was me, I would be starstruck so many times just because I'm always fascinated by different lifestyles or different jobs that people have, whether it's professional sports or you're doing something else for an event. And that that had to just be a kind of unique opportunity. Not only were you working, but you were experiencing some kind of pretty unique things, it sounds like. Meeting Coach Madden would be, I think, one of the amazing things that someone would love to say. So I don't blame you one bit for breaking
Eh,
protocol and asking for an autograph because
The
that's a rare situation right there and a fun one.
one of our events that just took a lot of staffing because it lasted so long was the Builder Show. And before the Builder Show opened one day, got a phone call that Kid Rock wanted to walk through and see some things for his patio and didn't want to be in the crowd. So we let him in. He walked through and I escorted him because the vendors needed to know who he was because it was fairly new in his career. And of course, he doesn't fit the style of you would think of somebody buying something if you were to see him just walking in the public. And so I always tell people today that I got to escort my good friend Bobby Ritchie through the Silverdome.
See right there. I love it. I love it. I think that's what's so fascinating about when we get a chance to talk to our elected officials. You all have a background just like everybody else. You know, you just chose a different route later in life to run for public office and serve your community. But I think that's what I love, and I think Johnny does too, and our listeners is we get to learn more about what your background is and what built you into someone who is involved in so much. So this is what kind of leads me to our next question. What created your interest in serving our community? You eventually decided to run for public office, and that is a big way of putting yourself out there and putting your hands in how the voters decide to go. But you're getting out there and talking to people. So, what created your interest in serving our community?
One of the core values of the Air Force is service before self. And I've always used that. I've always lived up to that. That's one of my guiding principles. If I see a need, I try to step up and help. I was the master of my Masonic Lodge here in Davison 3 times. I was the commander of the American Legion Post here. And all that happened in the first 10 years I'd retired from the Air Force. And when I was running for office, that all happened beforehand. And it's just because I'd been the executive, the presiding officer of these other activities, I not only got to know people, got to be in the community, parades, you name it, to whatever functions there were. And then we had a little bit of a water bill issue here in Davison where it wasn't being funded properly and the fund balance was going down, caught my attention, and I decided to run for city council. And I think the character of my father, who had been here forever, compared to myself, who had been gone for 20 years, carried the day, and the people elected me to city council. And that got me off and running.
Yeah. So now, what are some of the things that you did in those other areas that you served? You talk about the American Legion. What are some things that you guys do when you're serving in that role, or what does the American Legion Post do?
So the basic principle would be to take care of veterans in the area. We have people leave a message. As a post service officer several times, I'll review the messages, get people the help where they need it. A lot of times we just use the county services. There's a few other local people that can do service, whether it's getting a ramp for their house. We have some equipment, walkers and wheelchairs that people can use temporarily. Christmas time, we always make sure we get the vets, especially if they're serving, get their families some Christmas gifts. We just make sure we look out for veterans and have an avenue for veterans to meet, discuss. Of course, the American Legion has a huge Congress legislative actions for veterans' needs. So all the way along, we do local things, but being a member gets you some national things and veterans benefits looked after also.
I think that goes exactly along what you said with the Air Force saying service before self. I think that's a great example right there of a group that's continuing to serve even when they're out of the military. They have a desire to be there for others, which that I love seeing that in our community. David, I know you've seen it for years as well, and I'm sure our listeners have too, but you sit there and you might think what resources are available, or I know someone that needs help. And I think it's great to know that if you know a veteran that's in need, our Davison American Legion poster, whatever community you're in, is there to help and point you in the right direction or help provide a service. I think, David, so thanks for sharing about that. I think that's something good that our community really needs to know about.
And one of the big honors for being a member for me is I participated in the honor guard, the color guard, for not only carrying the flag in parades, but one of the greatest things you can do is honor a service member at their funeral so the family knows what that service member did and what it means. And so that every service member gets the honors of 3 rifle volleys and tabs being played, plus receiving their flag. So it is emotional, but there's so many times a grandchild will come up to me and says, "My grandpa did that." Oh yeah. Oh yes. They deserve all this honor.
It is. David, that's great to hear. I agree. It's something that to show respect and honor, but it's also teaching, younger individuals about their family member they might not have known as much about. I know for myself, I grew up with a grandfather that served in World War II, and talk about probably some of the most stories I've ever heard about his experiences and the friends he made and how important it was in his life. You see that, and I think that applies to every veteran you get a chance to talk with. And yeah, David, now I think if I remember right, the American Legion Post in Davidson also helps out with the honor guard over at Holly National Cemetery, don't they?
We serve the first Thursday every month there. Days, a lot of times I'm in Lansing, but whenever I get a chance, I go to Great Lakes with them. Hopefully this summer I get a few more chances. But we also do a lot of local services here. And local funeral homes will call us and set us up. And sometimes the honors are done right here in the local area.
Okay. Yeah. So now talk about your time in Lansing, you just mentioned. So what are some of the legislative issues or topics that you're currently working on or have a big focus on for the constituents you represent?
If you want to talk a big item, I would say the biggest item on our plate right now is Chinese ownership of a lot of new industry coming into Michigan using a lot of Michigan tax dollars. And so the question is, how much is the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, involved, which there is no such thing as private industry in China. So everything, all their profits will funnel into the Chinese government. When you look at their contracts, they're open, you can read them. This is not conspiracy theory. This is exactly what it is. If you are a Chinese worker and you come to work anywhere in outside of China, you must report information back to the government. So how deep does that go? How many Chinese workers they bring, especially in these rural areas where they're not going to have all the employees they need to run a factory? All these issues come up. And plus they get close to military bases. We just had the balloon fly over America. We just had a spy network police station in New York City exposed. There's so much going on. And the Chinese have actually said they want globalism. They want to run the global economy. And so we have to worry about that. And we want to make sure any money that the Michigan taxpayer spends is actually going to a corporation building something. And maybe the federal government forces them to use the Chinese because it's the only technology available for a battery or supply chains, get lithium or cobalt or something. And because we have these mandates from the government, whether it's the state or the federal, to get green energy by such a date real early, like 2030, 2035, no emissions, so much percentage of electric vehicles, to make these things happen, which is a false economy. They have to mandate it, and we have to go to the only place they supply it, which right now the Chinese control it. So I'm not blaming our local corporations for doing it, but the governments are forcing these companies to band together with partners that we have to watch out for. We have to make sure cybersecurity and everything else is real tight. So that's a big thing. And it's a real big in the weeds type issue. On a more local, common Michigan related thing, one of the things I'm excited to do is I work with the Snowmobile Association to make sure that their trails are taken care of, groomed trails that they take care of aren't ruined by four-wheel ORVs, but also protect the ORV users to be able to get to private property and things like that. It's coming along well, and it's something that I like to do. I'm on the Natural Resource Committee, and some of the outdoor activities that we get to learn about and participate in and actually make stronger, because that's a Michigan identity, and I like to do that.
And if I remember talking with you, you have a great background in supporting our local tourism and natural resources here in Genesee County. What is your background? This sounds, I know you have a passion for getting outdoors and encouraging individuals to take advantage of all the things that especially Genesee County has to offer. But tell me about that Natural Resources Committee. What's your background in promoting that and tourism in our area?
Right. And the entire committee name is Natural Resource, Environment, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation. So I've always promoted the I-69, I-74 corridor. I'm also on economic small business. I love talking about what we have here in the local area for resources, infrastructure, transportation, you name it. We have a lot of brownfields though. And a new mega site, talking about all these sites that are being built around there's a new mega site that they want to put in west of Bishop Airport. We got a lot of brownfields in Flint. No corporation is going to want to take that up, that liability. So the government might have to step in and help do that. Let's get those brownfields turned around and use those instead of taking agricultural land and turning it over to something that's going to become their own brownfield in 20 or 30 years. So when I was a county commissioner, I was the first county commissioner to become a certified tourism ambassador to the Flint and Genesee Chamber. That just means you got some training in history and activities in the local area and promote the local area. I was instrumental in getting the state park for Flint, instrumental in getting Flint River designated as a national water trail. I was in Washington, D.C., as a matter of fact, and talked to the Office of Interior to get that to happen. And we went through the steps again at state designation and then the federal designation. So I've been really pitching our area because you could set up a corporation here in Genesee County headquarters, like a Silicon Valley. We've got like automobile engineers, you name it. We can be rocket engineers. We got Kettering. We got U of M Flint. There's so much we can use here. You can start a career in a corporation, work 70 hours a week and still get away in 11,000 acres of parks that we have without having to go take vacation time. Very few hours lunchtime. You can basically get a little bit of a kayak trip in or something. So I've really been pitching what we have here in Genesee County. It was funny that I went to the governor's convention on tourism a couple weeks ago, and I walked around and I go, "Oh, you're David Martin. You're David Martin. You're David Martin." I looked at my hostess and I said, "Why does everybody know me?" They introduced me. I'm now the only legislator that's a certified tourism ambassador. And it was told to them during their meeting. And so when I got there, it's like, I had some stardom. It just shocked me. Why does everybody know who I am over here in Grand Rapids from all over the state? Yeah, I do pitch into this area, Genesee County. Grew up here, graduated high school. Love the stuff I have. My family's around here. Yeah, I want this to be a strong, vibrant community.
And I've been able to go through the Certified Tourism Ambassador program myself. And David, you're right. It is an amazing way to learn about the history of our area and the importance of what we offer. So it's great to see that you're doing this on the next level, promoting everything that our residents here in Genesee County can enjoy. And it's right next door to us, which is great. I know our family has always enjoyed going to our local parks. One of our favorite is Richfield County Park, which we love going out there. There's so much spaces to hike and just either have a picnic and just enjoy being outside, which is great. So David, that's one of the questions that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in. Three things. What is a day like when you're traveling the district? But then also, what is a day like for you in Lansing? So two areas there that I'm sure people are very interested in knowing what all you do as a state elected official.
I wish I could say like a 9 to 5 job. I can actually tell you what I have to do when I walk in the door and what I have to accomplish by the end of the day. Being a legislator is a lot different. Being a representative of the people is a lot different. So in district, which is usually Mondays and Fridays scheduled, but does not exclude Saturdays and occasional Sundays, because I might do an honor court for a Boy Scout or something on a Sunday. But if there's an activity going on, we want to be there. If there's an open house or something, we want to get there and promote it and encourage them. Let them know that we have services that can help them if they have a problem with unemployment in Lansing. If they have a problem with a regulatory thing, we got access to Laura and so forth, and we can raise their questions. But just to get communicating with the local public, we have our office hours. My newsletter and my Facebook page posts those so that people know that we're available face to face, here personal. I do live here. I do get around in the community. I see a lot of people in the restaurants and so forth, and people ask me questions all the time. I do not mind that. But we try to start in the southern part or the northern part, either way, of the district and go to the opposite end for office hours. So we usually have 2 on one day, and squeezed in there will be a meeting with a business owner or an activity at a library or something. So there's pretty much a full day, because at the end of the day, we have city council meetings we attend. I'll go to a township meeting, and I still try to squeeze in my civic activities also. And almost all those are in the evening. So it's a pretty full day. And that's just in the in-district days on a Monday and Friday. And then on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in Lansing, a lot of times we'll have an early meeting with one of our local caucuses to get updated on what's going on, what new legislation is coming up. And then we have committees at 9, 10:30, and noon. And we have session in the afternoon. And then we may have a meeting afterwards, local relationships with consultants or groups that want to raise their need and meet with us. And then get back here and sometimes go to a council meeting or something. So these can be very full days, and I commute to Lansing. I don't stay over there. So it's an hour drive each way, which does take 2 hours out of my day, but it does get me back here in the local area, usually in time to go to a council meeting.
And I also know you've always been so good with the chamber. When you're available, you come to our lunches and give us updates. But then also when we have a business grand opening ribbon cutting, as long as you're available, you're always there and you're wanting to talk to that business owner and get to know them, or you've already done your research and you know a lot about them, which we appreciate that you're committed to our area, not with our group as well. And I think that's evident in our community when you talk to people, they say, "Oh, David Martin's been here before. I'll talk to you." And you're like, "David, you've already visited this place. This is great." So I will say, it's as a former legislative staffer, I know how busy that you elected individuals are, just because you want to get out there and talk to as many people and get input and share information. So I think that is a great thing to see. And I think you're an individual that cares about the area and you want to spend that time here. But I know you don't just do it by yourself. I know you probably have a great team in Lansing that helps keep you organized and helps get invitations from other groups and works with you on your schedule. So what does your team in Lansing, what do they help you with? What do they do? What are their roles?
So great. And I like to recognize them because I say we a lot, and I usually mean them and me, not necessarily the legislature and with me in it. A lot of times we as the staff, we have what we call a front desk legislative aide that is our constituent care. They're the ones that make the phone calls for schedules. If you call and have a problem with the unemployment or getting with the Secretary of State because you haven't gotten some of your car title, they're the ones he's the one that will get you connected with who you need, or send email to our contact and try to get some resolution. So that's Sam. Sam has been very good, and I hope to keep him, but I know he's young and is going to want to go on to bigger and better things, but we're going to train him well. So he's got a good leg up the next step he goes. And then my legislative director, the one that helps me put together policy, take care of the ideas, run things through the legal services, checks with the other legislators of what can be done, works with our committee policy directors, and comes up with viable things that we can pitch, especially now that we're in minority. We want to make sure that we're pushing things that are good for 10 million people in the state, things that need to be done, we want to address. We're not pushing like an agenda type thing. We're very good at it, but we stay within our philosophies. We want to make sure that things are still limited government, worth the money that the government's going to spend, that it's a true government function and needs to be done. John keeps me kind of those constraints if I make sure I don't wander outside those things. So yeah, it's a great team. Blessed to have them. And I tell you what, they keep me on my toes. They don't let me slough off, whether it's legislative season or campaign season. I don't get to take a break.
It's always good to have that good support group and team to be part of something that is working for your district and your residents. And David, what if someone is, I really need help with something, or I have questions about what's going on? What's the best way that they can get a hold of your office?
The best thing to do is follow what we're doing. So repmartin.com is my legislative Facebook page, and the newsletter, you can sign up for that through there. And the newsletter comes out once a month. That gives a summary of what we did for the month, post what the office hours are going to be for the next month. Facebook, obviously, you can follow more day-to-day type thing and see what the activities are. Might be able to catch where I'll be. And then you can contact the office with a specific question at David Martin at house.mi.gov, or you can call the office 517-373-0826. All those are at repmartin.com, so I won't bother repeating them.
Good. And that's a great way, I think, for our residents to know that they have questions or need help with something, unemployment, Medicaid, anything. to reach out, and I'm sure you have a extremely friendly team that will work with them. So now, David, one of the things that I always like to kind of end talking with our guests with is something I think that we all love to hear. It's, what do you enjoy most about the Davison area overall? What's something that you can say, when I'm ready to relax, this is what I'm going to do, or what I would like to do to just enjoy everything?
And that's a loaded question. I do a lot. I can tell you what I like about being back in the Davison area after being gone 20 years in the Air Force, even though I've been back for 20 years now, is reconnecting with high school friends that are still in the area, attending the church where I was baptized. My family is here, so it's naturally I migrated back here again after the Air Force. It goes back to service for self. I like being with the civic organizations. I'm a member of groups because I want to be a member of those groups. And if I can help them in a fundraising activity or a fun night of some sort, it's just a crowd of like-minded people I like to be around. And that's why I chose organizations like the Legion and fraternities. And I just love being around those people. And whether it's a simple euchre game or a fundraiser, I'm more than happy to attend.
Good. State Representative David Martin, we appreciate you taking some time today. The Chamber appreciates all that you do to be part of our group. And I know I myself enjoy that I get to bump into you quite often in the area. So it's always nice to see a smiling, friendly face that we can catch up. And then as a former Lansing individual who worked there, I love being able to say, hey, David, can you update me on this? And you have that information. So I appreciate that myself, but I also enjoy bumping into you around town. David, we thank you so much for taking the time today to join us on the Community Collective podcast for the Davison Chamber, and we look forward to seeing you around town.
Great. I'm no Travis Howell, but I'm doing my part.
You know what? It's all about the community and getting out there and promoting it, and I think that we both enjoy doing that together.
I do enjoy that.
David, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you really soon.
Okay. And I want to thank you and Johnny for inviting me to do this. Thanks.